Ko te wai e hora nei, wai te mata. Ko te mara e takoto nei. Ko koutou aku rangatira Ngāti Whātua, koutou katoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. Over the last few months, I've had the privilege of working on a documentary with a team of gifted young Māori filmmakers funded by Māori TV and New Zealand On Air. And we've been travelling overseas into many locations in New Zealand by helicopter and farm bikes, flat-bottom boats and voyaging waka. From the Anaweka River on the west coast of the South Island to Puketoi Station in the Mania Toto, from Kapiti Island to Whareongonga south of Gisborne, from Ruatoki and the Uruweras to Rangihaua Northland. And in so many of these places, we've been talking with people who are passionately engaged in caring for local landscapes, many of them Māori, fighting to care for the Wairau Bar, for example, the Waikoropupu Springs, or the Whanganui River, looking after Kapiti Island, or the high country in the South Island. It's been an absolute joy. And in the Uruwera, we visited the Living House, built by Tūhoe, as their first major project after the treaty settlement, crafted from local soils and timbers by local people, planted with local plants, trees, bushes and reeds, giving voice to the living ancestral landscapes of Te Uruwera, whom they see as an ancestor. And at Whanganui, we learned about the fight for the Whanganui River. Their fight of the local iwi to take care of their ancestor, Te Awa Tupua, the river that's a tupua, a powerful being from the ancestral realm, Te Pō, and to have its independent life and rights recognised in law. And we now have Te Awa Tupua Act, as almost everybody will know, the first river in the world to be given its own legal status, standing, personality and rights. And it's been this poignant, heartwarming odyssey, and I've fallen in love with our country all over again. In so many of these places, we saw seabirds flying overhead or roosting ashore, and in so many of these landscapes, their habitats are at risk. So in what follows, I want to talk about our own attempts, in a small way, to do something about this at Waikereru or Longbush in Gisborne, by establishing an inland colony of oi, or greyfaced petrels. Oi is the local name for these birds. Each of us has a special landscape in our hearts with its plants and its animals, which, for me, that special place is Te Tai Rāwhiti, the east coast of New Zealand where I grew up, with its bare-boned hills, its long sandy beaches, rocky reefs, bush, and long winding rivers, including the Waimata, which runs past Te Toka Taio out to sea. Our family home was on the banks of the Waimata, and we'd row and paddle on the river as mullet or kanai jumped around us, or water ski on the cut at the mouth of the river, while seabirds flew overhead, or swim on Waikanai Beach. Like eels or inanga or kanai, as kids, we migrated up and down the Waimata, spending some time inland and some time at sea. Most weekends in the summer, there's 8 of us in my family, or 10 of us would pile into our family car and head off to a local beach, usually Puawa, where we'd slide down a steep headland on cabbage tree fronds and swim in the lagoon, dive in the rock pools for crayfish, or go body surfing. And when it was too hot to be at the beach, instead we'd head off from our home up a long, winding gravel road to Longbush or Waikereru, where we'd swim in the waterhole. And Longbush, the place I'm going to talk about, is about 7.5 kilometres as the birds fly to Puawa, to the sea, and about 9 kilometres down the river to Gisborne. So these were fantastic lessons to learn through the skin, that land and sea, rivers and beaches, people, plants, animals are all interconnected. It's also the lesson of whakapapa, of course, that rangi and papa, sky and earth, tāne, tangaroa, and tū, forest, river, ocean, and people all make up one vast extended kin group. And so from my teens, as I became immersed in Te Ao Māori, it became second nature for me to think in this way. In fact, second nature is a great way of talking about our relations with these other life forms and forces. Giving voice to nature, in my book, is not acting as a ventriloquist, putting words in the mouth of these other beings, but listening attentively to these other species and living systems, and being very active and very mindful in our relationships with them. So there's a part of us that's fundamentally linked with the rivers we swim in, for example, so that when Māori say, "Ko te awa, ko te awa ko au, I am the river and the river is me," as they say in the Whanganui, it's not just a poetic statement. When we visited Waido Bar, I learnt there from the forensic scientists and from the local tangata whenua that from the isotopes in the teeth of the people, the ancient people who are buried there, forensic scientists can identify the water those people drank when they were children. And scientists are now also studying human relationships with forests and plants and the physiological and psychological impacts they have on us when we live together. Increasingly, people are being described as holobionts. Ourselves, each of us, a living community of organisms that dwell among other living communities and rely on them for our own well-being and survival. And I think one of the messages I'd like to get across today is the need for us to do this in our science as well, to think of ecosystems in which people are one species among many, not to park them outside, the natural scientists doing their thing over here, the social scientists doing their thing over there, talking about anthropogenic impacts, ecosystem services, but seeing the web of life as it actually is with human beings right in the thick of these very complex food chains and ecosystems. So to the oi, the hero of our story, of our attempts to restore an inland colony of greyfaced petrels at Waikereru is Steve Sawyer of EcoWorks, whom we met in 2002, just 2 years after we bought the land, and as he was leaving Doc to set up his own business restoring endangered species. First, Steve helped us to apply to the Biodiversity Fund, then run by Doc, which was fantastic, to restore Longbush itself and create wildlife corridors, and native orchids began to appear just spontaneously, and tomtits migrated down from the hills. Then he decided to bring tautauai, or native robins, back to Longbush, our first effort at bird restoration. Most recently, he became almost obsessed with the idea of bringing back, establishing an inland colony of oi, or grey-faced petrels, at Longbush, linked with a cliff-top colony of petrels he had managed to establish at Te Kuri, or Young Nick's Head, using a sound attraction system and an excluder fence, and working with John and Amy Griffin. So the idea was to link these two, the colony at Te Kuri with an inland colony at Longbush, as I say, about 7.5 kilometres inland. Having worked with the excluder fence, Steve decided that this wasn't really affordable for the project that we were. Ours is a very Kiwi project, and we're not kind of wealthy financiers from New York, and so we invented a pest-free enclosure which local fences could build and maintain, and it's worked perfectly, which has been fantastic. And the first lot of oi arrived before Christmas 2011 from Te Kuri. They were put in artificial burrows. So there they are, being picked up from Te Kuri, were put in artificial burrows at Longbush, fed first of all with a weak solution of tin sardines, and then a stronger solution plus a mix of vitamins, and they successfully fledged. So there's the feeding process. And flew off on their Pacific migration. And we were all a bit freaked out because we knew that oi liked bright lights. And right at that time, it was around Christmas time, it was coming up to New Year's, and the Rhythm and Vines festival was on. And actually, we had one year when we had huge Soleil Lumiere type spectacular happening. We were all terrified these birds were going to crash onto the stage. But we know they didn't, because we had little transmitters and they successfully flew out into the ocean. Since then, we've had 3 further oi translocations from Longbush, from Te Kuri to Longbush, 10 in 2012. So we started off with 5 just to see how it went. Then we went up to 10. We took a break for a couple of years because the colony at Te Kuri was looking a little bit, they didn't have so many chicks that hatched. 11 in 2015 and 16 this last year over Christmas. We haven't ever lost a chick. But none have come home yet either. So that's the thing. So this is all a very, very big experiment to see whether these birds are, in fact, how many of them, if any, are going to come back to Longbush. If they don't, they'll probably go back to Young Nick's Head, and we made sure they were really fat and well when they set off on their Pacific migration. But what I think I've learnt from this exercise is that no restoration project is an island. The birds, for example, in this sort of case, come from somewhere else, like Te Kuri, for example, and they need other safe places to roost. And in the case of the oi, these are very far away, often in other countries, where we have no means at all to protect them, out at sea, when they roost and go to other places. But equally, too, nearby habitats present their own risks and dangers. Although for us, the Gisborne District Council, DOC, and our immediate neighbours have been great, these cross-boundary issues are a huge challenge to deal with when you're running a restoration project, especially as private citizens. And so it's hard to know that if the birds that you've raised or brought and cared for so meticulously, if they fly across the boundary, which they don't know exists, of course, to nest or to roost or feed, they're going to be vulnerable to predators and pests that can destroy their habitats. And that some of these predators may have been introduced by your neighbours. Not out of malice. Almost always, it seems to me, it's a lack of insight or knowledge or perhaps interest in how these ecosystems work. But even more importantly, how the well-being of other species affects our own health and survival. Although almost 20 years now at Longbush has taught me that the nature-culture split, the illusion that people are separate from the environment, is doing terrible damage. It's there in the sciences as well, as I pointed out, but it's there in our popular imaginations. People are just one life form in these living systems and not always the best behaved. We're also part of the spiral of time. Short-term thinking that puts profit above ecological health, including our own, as we've seen in Havelock North, for example, is another very, very dangerous habit of mind. So I think that restoration projects ought to be about trying to generate ecosystems in which people live in balance with other species. We're trying to make Longbush a beautiful place where people, and especially young people, can come and visit, learn to love its rare and endangered species, and acquire a passion for ensuring their right to survive into the future. The best outcome of all, though, would be if these birds and plants could range as they once did, inland, for example, in the case of the oi, safely, across their native habitats. Like people, they need networks of places in which to dwell, not just fenced-off reservations. A piecemeal haphazard approach, which is what I think we have with the RMA, for example, is dangerously inadequate. We urgently need local and regional and national and global strategies for habitat restoration if we're to avoid ecological devastation. Pest-Free New Zealand, I think, is our first effort as a country to tackle this, which is fantastic. But unless we also tackle, as our speakers are all saying, climate change, the fisheries, the health of our waterways, the ocean, and begin to invent more ecologically intelligent methods of land use, both urban and rural, a lot of our efforts are going to be wasted and future generations will be left bereft. So I guess the thing that I would just like to leave with us all, what I think I've learned is just how closely and how intimately and how inextricably our future and the futures of these other species, life forms and systems are tangled together. As my kaumātua and mentor, Eruera Sterling, used to chant, echoing the cry of the tui, whakarongo, whakarongo, whakarongo ki te tangi a te manu e karanga nei, tui, tui, tui tui ya. Listen, listen, listen to the cry of the bird calling bind, join, be one. Bind above, bind below. Bind within, bind without. Tie the knot of humankind. The night hears, the night hears. Bind the lines of people coming down from Great Hawaii, from Long Hawaii, from Hawaii far away. Bind to the spirit, to the daylight, to the world of light. Kia ora.